Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something pretty amazing. We are crossing two vast continents, North and South America, to discover how sheer physical geography literally builds global superpowers. We usually think of powerful nations being built solely by politicians, treaties, or armies, but in reality, it's the towering mountains and massive rivers, these hidden engines of the Americas that really dictate wealth, trade, and geopolitical power. Let's dive into it.
28,000 miles. Just think about that number for a second. The United States possesses around 28,000 miles of navigable inland waters. To put that massive advantage into perspective, the U.S.'s combined navigable waterways are actually larger than the rest of the world's combined. Draining water from 31 states and 2 Canadian provinces, this is an absolutely massive geographic head start that's just built right into the continent. But, to understand how these huge river networks even exist in the first place, we kind of need to zoom out a bit to the macro level. Have you ever heard of the continental divide? It's this invisible topographic line that separates continental drainage basins. Following the Great Spines of the Americas, we're talking the towering Rockies in the north and the breathtaking Andes in the south. This dividing line is nature's absolute decider. It dictates whether a single raindrop flows eastward toward the Atlantic or westward all the way to the Pacific. Now, what's really interesting about this is that you'd probably assume gravity inevitably pulls every single drop of water down to an ocean eventually, right? Well, surprisingly, a full 20% of all continental areas are what we call endorheic basins. Basically, the water is entirely trapped by mountain ranges and never drains into any ocean at all. Instead, it just sits there until it evaporates, leaving behind these massive, barren salt flats, like the ones you'd see in Utah or Bolivia. And then, sometimes geography just totally breaks its own rules. Take the fascinating story of North Two Ocean Creek, located right in the Teton Wilderness of the Rocky Mountains. It is a true geographic anomaly. The stream slowly approaches the continental divide and hits this one specific rock outcrop that splits the water perfectly in two. If a droplet goes west, it heads down the Snake River to the Pacific. But if it goes east, it travels down the Yellowstone River, all the way to the Atlantic. No way, right? It's literally splitting the difference. All right, let's get into Section 1, North America's Great Waters, the arteries of trade. So descending from those snowy mountaintops down to the micro level, we find incredibly trade-friendly water networks. Starting up north, we have the Great Lakes, beautifully summarized by the classic HOMES mnemonic: Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. This interconnected system represents the world's absolute largest area of freshwater, and crucially, they connect directly to the Atlantic Ocean via the St. Lawrence River. This acts as a massive natural gateway, allowing inland goods to seamlessly reach global markets. Moving south, we hit the iconic Mississippi River. Now, guess how fast its current is? It sits at just 1.2 miles per hour, barely a walking pace. It doesn't sound very powerful, does it? But this calm, lazy flow is actually America's hidden superpower, and it's a major reason why bulk goods and food at your local grocery store remain affordable today. With minimal interruptions from steep waterfalls or raging rapids, it's the ultimate low-maintenance economic engine for transporting massive amounts of cargo safely. And this brilliantly illustrates why that slow pace is such a game changer. It translates into unbeatable efficiency. A single 15-barge tow floating down the river can carry a staggering 26,250 tons of goods. To move that exact same amount of cargo by land, you would need a jumbo train carrying over 11,000 tons, or a fleet of over 1,000 large semi-trucks, which max out at just 40 tons each. The cost-effective capacity of these river barges is simply unmatched. But it's really important to realize this dominant system wasn't just pure luck. It took monumental human effort. Sheer engineering transformed these natural rivers into a $345 billion commercial powerhouse. Way back in 1792, volunteers built the South Hadley Canal. By 1825, the incredible Erie Canal linked the inland directly to the East Coast. And jumping to the 1970s, the Army Corps of Engineers built a massive $2 billion river control scheme, literally just to force the lower Mississippi to maintain its course toward New Orleans, protecting centuries of infrastructure. The human consequence of this meticulously maintained system? It's profound. The Mississippi Basin alone supports over 1.2 million jobs across the Midwest. From the farmers growing the crops, to the loaders at the docks, all the way to the towboat drivers navigating the waters, This waterway enriches the population and significantly raises the overall GDP of a nation that, by the way, already controls 30% of the world's wealth. Which brings us to Section 2, South America's Wild Giants, Untamed Power. So what happens when nature is a bit less accommodating? Let's formally contrast the Mississippi with the Amazon River system, which is fed by the massive runoff of the Andes Mountains. While the Mississippi is heavily engineered for optimal trade, the Amazon is just an entirely different beast. Despite being incredibly deep, it flows through this lush, heavily forested environment that makes large-scale engineering an absolute ecological nightmare. In fact, because of its wild course, there is literally not a single bridge crossing the Amazon River today. Mind-blowing, right? South America is truly defined by river systems of immense, breathtaking scale. We have the Amazon, boasting the world's largest drainage basin at over 6,500 kilometers. Then there's the Paraná, the world's 8th longest river. The Orinoco serves as home to incredible biodiversity, including the world's rarest crocodiles. And the São Francisco River acts as the absolute agricultural heart of Brazil. These immense rivers shape national borders, sustain agriculture, and harbor completely unique wildlife. But trying to utilize them for seamless continental trade? That's tough. Take the Itaipu Dam on the Paraná River, the world's second biggest hydroelectric dam. While it produces an enormous amount of vital energy for the region, it is completely unnavigable for cargo ships. Massive, unnavigable structures like this basically halt the kind of continent-spanning freight trade that happens so easily up in North America. Moving on to Section 3, Engineering and Looming Threats, the Fragile Balance. So, the crucial point is, whether they are heavily engineered for trade or left as wild natural wonders, these geographic engines are facing some unprecedented vulnerabilities today. The stark reality in the U.S. is that 80% of river locks are now over 50 years old. They have far exceeded their originally engineered design life. The very system that guarantees America's superpower status and allows those massive 15-barge tows to operate smoothly, it's aging rapidly, and it requires immediate investment to prevent some pretty catastrophic failures. And, well, aging concrete isn't the only threat we have to consider. We face the looming global threat of climate-induced droughts. Keep in mind, this river basin produces 92% of America's agricultural exports, so this directly impacts global food security. Back in 2012, a Great Plains drought forced the river to close 3 times, resulting in a staggering $35 billion lost. And in October 2022, water levels dropped so low that 248 barges were left completely stuck in the mud. When rivers run dry, the whole economic engine just grinds to a halt. Now, while U.S. spending on waterway modernization has frequently stalled, losing billions in potential economic value, other nations are moving aggressively. For context, China is currently moving an astonishing 2.6 billion tons of freight yearly on the Yangtze River. Furthermore, they are heavily investing in foreign rivers, like the Mekong in Southeast Asia, rapidly upgrading infrastructure to harvest the river's massive trade potential. It all brings to mind a powerful realization. There's a quote that goes, "The only country that can truly threaten the success of America's waterways is America itself." Despite massive foreign infrastructure investments globally, the primary challenge to the U.S. maintaining its geographic superpower status isn't actually a foreign power. It's the domestic struggle to maintain, fund, and upgrade the incredibly lucky gifts of its own geography. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a profound question to chew on. Can massive infrastructure and forward planning truly overcome the unpredictable forces of nature? As climates change, as droughts become more frequent, and as concrete infrastructure ages past its lifespan, the resilience of these incredible geographic engines will be tested like never before. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.